arch tracing. And this is a normal tracing too. The patient has the possibility to get his mandible earlier in lateral movements than in the first one that is superimposed. You notice the arrow points coincide. This tracing instead shows no definite arrow point. It's rather a shallow curve. And you see that the arrow point of the normal reading is far behind of this, so it indicates that the patient made all his movement in a more mesial situation than in centric relation position of the mandible. Now this airplane here shows quite the contrary. The patient is able to go further back than centric relation, as you show in comparison with the normal tracing. But you see, it's not possible to make lateral movements from the real most retruded position. So for this, the patient has to come a little bit more mesial, and then he is in CR, and from there he can start the lateral movements. But when the patient is in tension and the muscles are tense, then he is not able to make nice tracing as we had it for the normal case. The whole tracing is restricted, but the arrow point still is, in this case, in CR. And here we have another abnormal situation. It's to say the patient is not able to get his mandible to the left. So there is some hindrance in the right condylar area or in the right muscular area. In this case, we have the disturbance in the left condylar area, because the condyle goes farther back on the left side than on the right side, as you can compare it with the normal tracing. I showed you some tracings of the Gothic arch and told you how to interpret them. Note that the very nice Gothic arch may be produced by a patient whose lateral pterygoid muscles on both sides are under tension and, therefore, fix the condyles anterior against the articular tubercles. Thus, the arrow point does not indicate centric, but a protruded jaw relation. As we have everything assembled together, the history and the analysis, the examination and the x-rays, we could proceed with the occlusal analysis or with a reconstruction. This rather simple combined face bow central bearing point registration technique, here in a setup for complete denture construction, was designed 1. To determine centric jaw relation, 2. To trace and measure the condylar path in protrusive movements, and 3. To transfer the data on an articulator. The condulator, as a semi-adjustable articulator in turn, is built to accept these data and to reproduce mandible movements with the idea to create a tolerable occlusion in harmony with the temporomandibular joints and the neuromuscular system. No registration technique whatever will give us dependable results.